David Hume, do you notice when he died? We're now coming to the end of the 18th century. He died in 1776, after the end of a good long life of 65 years. So David Hume, the empiricist experiment begun by Locke and Berkeley was completed by Hume. And really, we now see that with Hume, this is going to be the opposite of this continental rationalism. With Hume, we're going to see the full development of a system which now is the opposite of what we saw in France and Holland and Germany. He applied for the chair, to be the chair of ethics at the University of Edinburgh, was turned down. Why? Because his reputation preceded him, his reputation as a skeptic and as an atheist. And we were not going to have a skeptic and atheist in charge of our philosophy department in Edinburgh. He said, all contents of the mind, all contents, we were tabula rasa, they all come from experience. He said, we have impressions, that is to say, our senses give us data, and we have ideas, what happens when we think or reason about those, the data that comes to us from our impressions. But all of our knowledge, everything you know, comes from your senses and from the complex ideas that have been formed around the things that you've taken into your senses. He said, there is no such thing as substance. Such a thing doesn't come from the senses or from reflection. He said, the idea of a substance is nothing but a collection of simple ideas that are united by the imagination and have a particular name assigned to them, by which we are able to recall either to ourselves or to others that recollection. You call it a sugar cube, that white, hard, sweet thing. We all agree on a name for it, and so that when we assign it a name, and then when I say the word sugar cube, you recall that white, hard, sweet thing that you've experienced through your senses of sight and touch and taste in the past. If you were blind and deaf and couldn't feel, you would have no idea what a sugar cube is. And I could shout in your ear sugar cube all day and you would have no idea what I'm talking about because you never experienced it. He said we infer the existence of cause and effect by linking sense experiences. Cause and effect. Where does cause and effect come from? Because I see one thing, I take something in through my senses, connect it with something else, and I take it in through my senses. So for instance, I see the flame, I touch the flame, ouch, that was hot. Okay, I connect the two experiences. I saw the flame through my senses, touched the flame through my experiences, I got that data, connected it, oh, fire is hot. Fire causes heat. Follow me? He said, when I am convinced of any principle, it is only an idea which strikes more strongly upon me. When I'm convinced of something, why am I convinced of it? Because of a feeling, he's saying. When I give preference to one set of arguments over another, I do nothing but decide from my feeling concerning the superiority of their influence. Mario has a feeling that God exists. What does that tell us about Mario and about the human person? Hume said what that tells us is that we always go with our feeling. If your feeling is stronger in one direction, then that's going to shape what you believe. But I just have this feeling that he or she doesn't love me. Ooh, wait a minute. We always go with our feelings. He said, all our reasonings concerning cause and effect are derived from nothing but custom, and belief is more properly an act of the sensitive than of the cogitative part of our nature. Cause and effect, where does it come from? From custom. We get into these habits of believing certain things, right? I see fire, I touch it, hot, oops, okay, I get into this habit of associating fire with heat, and so I don't touch it. Have you ever seen fire handlers or people who handle hot things? Wait a minute, what's up there? Obviously, there's something that's not fitting with our experience. He said, many beliefs are the result of education, in quotes, right? We're told to believe certain things, we're educated to believe certain things, and some of those things are irrational. The way to cure ourselves of them is to have recourse to experience, or rather, to test those beliefs by experience. And when I'm thinking about that this afternoon, I was thinking to myself, you know what? There's some things that I have that are just totally irrational, like my fear of blood. If someone is cut in this room, I am the first person to hide my eyes and be out that door. You're on your own if you cut yourself in this room. Yeah, I'm just joking. I'll probably help you out, but I really do hate blood. Where does that come from? Somehow I was programmed through some incident a long time ago, I'm imagining, to have that reaction to blood. You know what? It's just a matter, it seems, of reprogramming myself, of re-educating myself to what's going on in that situation. Wait a minute. I mean, that's a natural thing. Nurses and doctors see blood all the time. It doesn't cause the same reaction because they obviously have a different way of looking at that. And if I looked at that in the same way, then I have a feeling I wouldn't be hiding my eyes next time I saw blood. David Hume also talks about immaterial substances like the soul. Ooh, let's touch that one. Right? For our entire time of believing as Christians and during the Middle Ages, we talked about body and we talked about soul. We tried to figure out how did the soul come into the body and when. David Hume says, immaterial substances like the soul present meaningless questions. I'm not even going to talk about the soul tonight. It is meaningless, said David Hume, because we can attach no clear meaning to soul. The soul, like the unicorn, exists in my head. I have an idea of the soul. I have no proof that a unicorn exists outside of my head, and I have no proof that a soul exists outside of my head either. He said the problem about the substance of the soul had better be dismissed then, because we can't all see it and we can't all agree to it. We can make no sense of things like the soul, said David Hume. Interestingly, he said, in ancient Greece, the philosophy that we studied when we studied ancient philosophy, they weren't encumbered, burdened by all of the theology and the Christian dogma that we have now. Because now Christian dogma is telling me that we have to believe a certain way, and then all of a sudden, because we believe a certain way, we have to use philosophy to justify that. Things like transubstantiation. Once you believe that a thing is a certain way, then you have to try to explain it philosophically. Oh, people. You're in a world of hurt. That's not the way. That's not the way to be doing philosophy. So he believed that philosophy had been misused in the service of theological doctrine. He said after he read Locke and Clarke, both of whom we mentioned this evening, he never again entertained any belief in religion. Interesting. Precursor to the atheist. We see where all this is going? He said, religion originates... Why are you people religious? I'll tell you why. Religion originates from one of two things. From fear of disaster. You're afraid of whatever, so you start praying to your gods and goddesses. Or the hope of advantage or betterment. Right? You want to do well on your test tomorrow, so you say a prayer to your gods or goddesses or whomever, whatever powers are out there. That's Hume. He said when our passions are directed towards something invisible, some invisible intelligent power, that's where religion arises. In this mind, we have these ideas of these invisible intelligent powers, and we give them power in our lives. In the long run, though, he said, the world is a mystery that we will never be able to understand. We can't even have certain causes of the ultimate causes. Where this world came from, we'll never know. He's an empiricist. All that we know comes to us through the senses. So the existence of God, do we believe in God? The existence of God is nothing that we can demonstrate. There's no valid argument for God's existence, said Hume. He said the most solid foundation for religion or divinity or theology is faith and divine revelation. If you're going to have a religion, I'll tell you it's based on one thing. It's based on revelation. It's based on someone saying that God told them something. Hume had no place for revelation. Why? Because it's not objective. It's not universal. It's one person's experience. He said, when we run over libraries... think about this for a moment. When we run over libraries persuaded of these theological principles, what havoc must we make? If we take in hand any volume, any book of divinity, or any school metaphysics, for instance, let us ask, does it contain any abstract reasoning concerning quantity or number? Is it like math? No. Does it contain any experimental reasoning concerning matter of fact and existence? Anything that we can do experimentally? No. What should we do with it? Commit it to the flames. For it can contain nothing but sophistry and illusion. All those books on theology and divinity and faith and spirituality and prayer and all those other things that make us feel so good, unless you can reduce it to those principles of empiricism, something that we can test and experiment, something we can quantify like math, unless you can do that, get rid of them. To progress in knowledge, he said, we must free ourselves from all prejudices, attain a state of impartiality, begin with clear and evident principles, and advance carefully, examining all the steps of our reasoning. David Hume, modern philosophy. The reason that we study him in any seminary is simply so that we can understand the various attacks that have been made on God and on religion. What are the arguments that have been presented by persons like Hume, so that we can see how it is that others have responded to those arguments and ultimately see what makes sense to us and to those to whom we minister. There are going to be people to whom we minister who are going to come to us with certain ideas that are strikingly similar to many of these philosophers whom we studied today. That the material, I believe the material, you know what? These things that are immaterial, soul, God, unicorns, not part of my experience. A lot of people out there who would say it's not part of my experience. I don't believe in unicorns, and I don't believe in God.
We know the difference between a unicorn and God.
What is the difference? Mario says we know the difference between a unicorn and God. What is the difference, Mario? Unicorns don't exist and God does. Okay, say the empiricists, they both came to you as ideas that other people gave to you. They both exist in your mind. The question is, do they exist outside of your mind? Many of the empiricists will say, yes, God does exist. We know that God does exist, but we don't know what God is. We know that God is. We don't know what God is.